Welcome to the Skin Bliss podcast, where we break down skincare with science, not hype.
Today we're cracking open a highly specific and honestly pretty countercultural skincare guide.
Oh, it really is. It goes against almost everything we're taught.
Right. So we're pulling directly from this comprehensive barrier SOS framework, which was provided by the skincare routine app Skin Bliss.
Yeah, and their guide is focused entirely on rosacea.
Exactly. And what is so fascinating about their specific approach is that they completely reject almost every piece of modern skincare advice out there.
They really do. It's wild.
We are going to test their theory today. Because if their framework is correct, the way we have all been taught to care for our skin is, well, fundamentally flawed for a huge portion of the population.
It forces this complete reevaluation of, the actual biology of the face versus the marketing of the beauty industry.
Totally.
Because the conventional wisdom we see everywhere tells us that skincare is like a math equation where addition always equals improvement.
Yeah, I always think of it like building a house,
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
You're taught to lay the foundation with a double cleanse, then you add the framing with, 3 different serums.
Right, the hydration layers.
Yeah, and then the drywall is your heavy moisturizer, and then you paint it all with an overnight mask to get that trendy glass skin glow.
Every single step supposedly adds some sort of structural value.
Exactly. But stepping into the world of rosacea through the lens of this Skin Bliss guide, that entire construction project just collapses.
It does. It really does.
Following the mainstream blueprint when you have rosacea isn't building a house. It is actively pouring gasoline on a fire.
Which is exactly why unpacking this specific rulebook is so critical for you guys listening.
Yep.
What acts as a powerhouse routine for, the vast majority of the population, it will actively sabotage a rosacea-prone complexion.
And that is our ultimate mission for this deep dive. We really want to act as a shortcut for you.
Save you the trial and error.
Exactly. If you are constantly battling redness, heat, and irritation, we want to save you time, a whole lot of money, and the absolute frustration of buying products that promise a miracle but just deliver a massive flare-up.
Ugh, the worst feeling.
So to do that, we have to look under the hood. Before we even look at a single product recommendation today, we have to understand the physical mechanisms at play.
Right.
The source material hinges on 2 biological factors here. It's a severely compromised skin barrier and an extreme, almost hyperreactive sensitivity to temperature.
Let's look at the barrier first, because compromised barrier is a phrase thrown around a lot in beauty marketing.
Oh, constantly.
Yeah, but we need to look at the actual cellular mechanics. Think of the top layer of your skin, the stratum corneum, as a brick wall.
Okay.
Your skin cells are the bricks, and the lipids, so your ceramides, cholesterol, fatty acids, those are the mortar holding everything together.
Got it.
In a healthy barrier, that mortar is thick, it's impenetrable. It keeps moisture locked inside the body and keeps environmental aggressors out.
But with rosacea, that mortar is essentially crumbling, right?
Yes, exactly. The lipid matrix is structurally deficient. It's highly porous.
Right.
So not only is the skin rapidly losing hydration to the air, which is what causes that tightness and flaking,
Right.
but microscopic irritants that would normally just bounce right off a healthy face, they're penetrating deep into the lower layers of the epidermis.
Oh, just setting off alarm bells in the immune system.
Precisely.
And those immune system alarms tie directly into the temperature factor. The guide gives strict warnings against hot water and steam.
No long boiling hot showers.
Which is sad, but necessary. But the directive that genuinely caught my attention was the absolute ban on heavy occlusives.
Ah, yes. Occlusives being ingredients like petrolatum, mineral oil, or, thick waxes.
Yeah.
Their entire biological job is to sit on top of the skin and form a seal to stop moisture from evaporating.
Which sounds great for a dry, crumbling mortar until you factor in the heat. The way I visualize it, using a heavy, unbreathable occlusive on rosacea is, it's like putting a thick down winter parka on someone who is already running 102-degree fever.
That is a perfect analogy. The blood vessels in a rosacea-prone face are hyperreactive.
Yeah.
They're dilated, they're rushing blood to the surface, generating excess heat, and leaking inflammatory mediators.
So the skin desperately needs to ventilate and cool down.
Exactly. If you trap that biological heat against the face with a thick wax, you are blocking the body's natural thermal regulation.
Which sounds like a nightmare.
It is. That thermal trap is a guaranteed trigger for a flush.
Wow.
When you combine those two structural realities, the trembling mortar and the hyperreactive blood vessels, it establishes the baseline requirement for this entire framework.
Right.
Because the skin is in a chronically inflamed state, anti-inflammatory is no longer just like a nice marketing buzzword for a serum.
It's the absolute non-negotiable requirement for anything that comes into contact with the face.
Exactly. Because the barrier is broken, whatever chemical you apply is gaining VIP access straight into the immune system.
And that leads us perfectly into the ingredient minefield.
Oh boy.
Yeah. The Skin Bliss guide lays out a strict do not cross list alongside a vetted group of hero ingredients. Let's look at the heroes first.
Okay, let's do it.
But I want to go beyond just listing them. I want to know what they are physically doing to the cells. The guide highlights azelaic acid, centella, and green tea extract.
I could definitely break down the mechanisms for each.
Awesome.
Azelaic acid is fascinating because it's a naturally occurring dicarboxylic acid. When it enters the skin, it actively inhibits the production of pro-inflammatory proteins.
So it's stopping the fire before it starts.
It is essentially intercepting the cellular signals that tell the face to become red and swollen.
That's incredible.
And it also regulates keratin production. That helps prevent dead skin cells from piling up and causing texture issues, all without the harsh chemical burning of a traditional acid.
Okay, so then we have centella, or its isolated active compound metacasoside. You see this heavily in Korean skincare marketed as Cica.
Yeah, Cica is huge.
Yeah.
Centella's mechanism of action is all about the mortar in our brick wall analogy.
Okay.
It actively stimulates the synthesis of collagen and promotes the generation of new lipids.
Oh, wow.
Right. It isn't just sitting on the surface feeling soothing. It is providing the raw materials the skin actually needs to physically rebuild that compromised lipid matrix.
I love that. And green tea extract.
That one functions as an elite bodyguard. Its active component, EGCG, is a really potent antioxidant.
Okay.
It neutralizes environmental free radicals like pollution before they can interact with the vulnerable skin cells and trigger an immune response.
Okay, those mechanisms are brilliant. But here is where I really have to push back on the guide's recommendations.
Uh-oh. What is it?
It's specifically regarding niacinamide.
Ah, yes.
The Skin Bliss framework states niacinamide is helpful for rebuilding the barrier, but only at concentrations of 4 to 5%. It explicitly warns against 10% concentrations.
It does.
I find this incredibly confusing because I always assumed niacinamide was like universally safe. It's marketed like water.
It really is.
If you walk down any skincare aisle right now, every brand is screaming from the label that their serum has 10, 15, or even 20% niacinamide. What is actually happening to the skin at that higher dose?
It's a classic case of marketing arms race, completely overriding biological utility.
Oh, interesting.
Decades of clinical studies show that niacinamide optimizes ceramide production and reduces inflammation beautifully at a 2 to 5% concentration.
So that's the sweet spot.
That is the biological sweet spot. But in the retail space, brands know that consumers equate higher numbers with better value.
Right, bigger is better.
So they started pumping formulas up to 10 and 15% just to stand out on the shelf.
So the consumer assumes they're getting triple the benefit.
Right, but the biology just doesn't scale that way.
Really?
No. At 10% or higher, the niacinamide molecule itself, or the solvents required to keep that high of a concentration stable in a liquid, they become actively irritating.
Oh, wow.
For a normal, robust skin barrier, that irritation might be microscopic and just go unnoticed.
But for rosacea?
For a rosacea barrier with missing mortar, dumping a hyper-concentrated chemical onto exposed immune cells triggers immediate inflammation. The dose makes a poison.
That is wild. It must be so frustrating for you to look at a product labeled soothing barrier repair, see that it has 10% niacinamide, and realize it's actually a trap.
Oh, you have no idea.
And that trap mentality really extends to the villains on this list, too.
Definitely.
The guide completely bans high-concentration alcohol denat, witch hazel, sodium lauryl sulfate, which is the foaming agent in most cleansers, and anything containing menthol or camphor.
Menthol and camphor are particularly deceptive.
Guess so.
They're added to products specifically to provide a cooling or tingling sensation. The beauty industry has trained us to believe that if a product tingles, it's actively working.
I am so guilty of thinking that. Like, a slight burn feels productive.
A lot of people feel that way. But biologically, what is that tingle? It is neurogenic inflammation.
Aches.
Menthol activates the cold receptors in the skin, which basically tricks the nervous system into rapidly dilating the blood vessels.
Wait, but vascular dilation is exactly what rosacea sufferers are trying to avoid.
Exactly. For someone whose primary enemy is blood rushing to the face, applying menthol is inducing the exact biological event you're trying to prevent.
That is crazy, but the villain that will probably break the most hearts here is the total ban on fragrance and essential oils.
I know. This is a tough one for a lot of people.
The Skin Bliss guide dictates avoiding them in any amount, 0, which flies directly in the face of the massive clean beauty movement right now.
It really does.
Natural marketing is everywhere, telling us that synthetic chemicals are toxic and natural plant extracts are pure.
This is where we really have to separate idyllic marketing from organic chemistry.
Okay, lay it on us.
Essential oils, like lavender, eucalyptus, or rose, they are not just pleasant smells. They are highly complex, volatile compounds made up of hundreds of different chemical constituents.
Right.
In nature, plants use these intense volatile chemicals to repel insects or fight off fungus.
They are literal defense mechanisms.
Precisely. So when someone with a flaring, highly sensitive rosacea barrier goes looking for a gentle, natural lavender cream,
Oh no.
they are actually applying a chaotic chemical cocktail to skin that has absolutely no defenses. To an exposed immune system, an essential oil is an overwhelming barrage of known allergens.
So you're trying to do the right thing by buying the botanical cream, and you're accidentally launching a chemical attack on your own face.
Unfortunately, yes.
The only thing your skincare should smell like is absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all.
So if we eliminate the hot water, the heavy occlusives, the high percentage actives, the foaming agents, and the essential oils, we hit a serious logistical roadblock. Sunscreen.
Yes. How do you handle sunscreen? Every dermatologist on the planet mandates daily SPF, especially since UV light is a massive trigger for rosacea flares.
The sunscreen conundrum is the ultimate test of the rosacea framework.
Because you have to protect the skin from UV radiation, but you cannot introduce chemical irritants or trap heat.
Exactly.
The guide recommends mineral filters, specifically zinc oxide, and explicitly warns against chemical filters like oxybenzone or L-benzone.
Yep.
But I always thought chemical sunscreens were much more elegant and, easier to wear without a white cast. Why are they banned here?
It all comes back to the mechanism of action. Chemical sunscreens protect you by absorbing UV rays right into the skin.
Okay.
A chemical reaction actually takes place where that UV energy is converted into infrared energy, which is heat. And then that heat is dissipated off the skin.
Wait, so if I wear a chemical sunscreen, my face is literally functioning as a microscopic radiator?
Yes, that's exactly what it's doing.
Oh my. Now, for a healthy person, this heat conversion is entirely imperceptible. But for a highly reactive rosacea barrier, where the threshold for a vascular flush is incredibly low.
That trace amount of heat is enough to trigger a flare.
Exactly. That generated heat can trigger a full inflammatory cascade.
Wow.
Mineral sunscreens, like zinc oxide, bypass this entirely. They just sit on top of the skin and act as physical mirrors, reflecting and scattering the UV rays away.
So there's no absorption.
No absorption, no chemical reaction, and critically, no heat conversion.
That structural difference changes everything.
It really does.
And the guide includes a really fascinating operational tip for reapplying that mineral sunscreen throughout the day.
Oh, this stick sunscreen tip.
Yes. It suggests using a solid stick sunscreen rather than a liquid lotion. I initially thought that was just about convenience, for your purse.
A lot of people think that.
But when you think about the physical mechanics of skincare, it is brilliant.
Walk us through it.
Well, if you were out in the sun, your face is already warm and vulnerable. Pumping a glob of liquid lotion into your hands and vigorously rubbing it into your cheeks to make the white cast disappear. It's like scrubbing a fresh sunburn with a dry towel.
Ouch. Yeah, you are introducing severe mechanical stress to the face.
But a stick sunscreen acts like a gentle paint roller. You simply glide it over the surface.
Right.
It deposits the zinc oxide evenly without the friction, without the pulling, and without the heat of your palms rubbing against your face. It's a brilliant way to eliminate mechanical inflammation.
It is. And minimizing mechanical stress is actually the secret architecture of the entire daily routine proposed by the source.
Let's look at how we actually assemble this routine then.
Let's do it.
When you wake up and look at your bathroom counter, what do? The Skin Bliss framework advocates a shockingly minimalist approach.
Very minimalist.
The AM routine is rinse with cool water or use a gentle micellar cleanser. Apply your azelaic acid or a single calming serum. Apply a lightweight moisturizer. Finish with your mineral SPF.
4 steps maximum.
4 steps. But it's the PM routine that usually causes the most hesitation for people used to modern skincare, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I absolutely pushed back when I read the PM routine.
What do you think?
The guide suggests just 2 steps: a gentle cream cleanser followed by a moisturizer. That's it.
Yep, just 2.
My immediate reaction was, what about hydration? No hydrating toners? No snail mucin essences? No peptide serums?
Feels wrong to a lot of skincare fans.
There is so much pressure to flood the skin with multiple layers of hydration before bed. Just using a cleanser and a basic cream feels like a recipe for dehydration.
I get that. It feels completely counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But we have to look at the math of compounding exposure.
Compounding exposure.
Yeah, every single product you apply, even the most gentle, soothing essence, contains its own base formulation, its own texture enhancers, and its own preservatives to stop mold from growing in the bottle.
Okay, that makes sense.
If you layer a toner, an essence, 2 serums, and a night cream, you are not just applying 5 active ingredients. You are exposing your hyperreactive immune system to 60 or 70 different chemical compounds simultaneously.
Wow. So you are drastically increasing the statistical probability that one of those preservatives or emulsifiers is going to trigger an alarm.
Exactly. And furthermore, you're compounding the mechanical stress we just discussed with the sunscreen.
Oh, right. The friction.
Every time you pat, press, rub, or massage a new liquid into your face, you are introducing friction. The sheer physical act of applying a 7-step routine violates the mandate for low irritation.
So rosacea care basically requires treating the skin like fragile tissue paper.
Tissue paper, exactly. Less is truly more.
Okay, but let's get very real for a second.
Sure.
What happens if you do everything right? You throw out your lavender creams, you switch to a zinc oxide paint roller stick, you pare your routine down to a boring 2 steps at night, you treat your face like tissue paper,
Yeah.
and you are still suffering.
It happens.
This is the crucial pivot point in the Skin Bliss guide, isn't it?
It is. The framework dedicates significant space to recognizing the absolute limits of over-the-counter minimalism.
It sets very specific parameters for when to abandon the skincare aisle and go see a dermatologist.
Right.
You need a doctor if the over-the-counter products aren't managing the daily flares, if the structural redness is spreading, or, and this is a vital distinction, if you develop persistent pustules.
Yes. The guide identifies these pustules as type 2 rosacea, or papulopustular rosacea.
Oh, okay.
This requires a completely different approach because type 2 is almost universally confused with traditional teenage acne.
It really is. If you wake up with pustules on your cheeks, the immediate panic instinct is to grab the strongest acne treatment you can find.
Oh, absolutely.
Salicylic acid, benzoyl peroxide, those little pink drying lotions.
Which will cause an absolute explosion of inflammation.
Why is it so different?
Well, traditional acne is caused by excess sebum oil clogged in a pore, which then creates an environment for acne bacteria to thrive. Benzoyl peroxide works by blasting that pore with oxygen to kill the bacteria and dry up the oil.
Okay.
But rosacea pustules are not clogged pores.
They aren't.
No. They are intense, localized pockets of white blood cells reacting to massive inflammation.
Oh, wow.
And often, this inflammation is triggered by a heightened immune response to Demodex mites.
Mites?
Yeah, they're microscopic mites that naturally live on all human skin, but they proliferate heavily in rosacea-prone environments.
Okay, so if you apply benzoyl peroxide to a rosacea pustule, you aren't clearing a clog at all.
Not at all.
You're just chemically burning an already overwhelmed immune response.
You're dropping a bomb on a structurally deficient barrier. This is why the guide doesn't just suggest seeing a doctor. It lists the exact prescription mechanisms that actually work.
It does. It names topical ivermectin, topical metronidazole, and low-dose oral doxycycline.
Which is so helpful.
Having that vocabulary is incredibly empowering for the listener. Instead of walking into a clinic feeling helpless, you can walk in and say, I have optimized my barrier, I have eliminated triggers, but I am still battling type 2 pustules. Can we discuss ivermectin to target the Demodex mites?
It changes the whole doctor's visit. And ivermectin is highly effective precisely because it kills off the overpopulation of those mites while simultaneously acting as a potent anti-inflammatory.
That's amazing.
And the low-dose doxycycline is a brilliant medical tool too. Doxycycline is an antibiotic, but at a very low dose, usually around 40 milligrams, it is sub-antimicrobial.
Wait, meaning it doesn't act like an antibiotic at all?
Correct. At that specific low dose, it doesn't kill bacteria and it doesn't mess with your gut microbiome.
Oh, that's a relief.
It only acts to turn off the inflammatory pathways in the skin from the inside out. It is a completely different mechanism than skincare.
Which really highlights a psychological hurdle a lot of people face with this.
With that,
Sometimes we feel like we have failed at our skincare routine if we have to resort to a prescription pill or medical cream.
oh, I see that all the time.
Like we just didn't try hard enough or didn't buy the right luxury serum.
Moving to a prescription is not a failure. Rosacea is a chronic medical condition, not a cosmetic failing.
Exactly.
The framework here relies on a strict division of labor. Think of your over-the-counter routine: the gentle cleanser, the basic moisturizer, the mineral SPF as your shield.
Okay.
Its only job is to maintain the lipid mortar, deflect UV rays, and avoid causing further harm.
And the prescriptions.
The prescriptions, the ivermectin, the sub-antimicrobial doxycycline, those are the sword.
Yeah.
They do the heavy lifting of fighting the underlying disease state.
I love that. You cannot win a battle with only a shield, and you certainly won't survive one without it. You need both working in tandem.
Perfectly said.
So to wrap up this exploration, if you take nothing else away from today's deep dive into the Skin Bliss framework, remember this: standard beauty advice is completely inverted when it comes to rosacea.
Completely invert.
Temperature traps and physical friction are your ultimate enemies. The dose makes the poison, even with beloved ingredients like niacinamide, and a strict, boring, highly protective routine is your greatest asset.
You know, analyzing the biology behind all of these rules leaves me with a final, somewhat provocative thought.
Ooh, let's hear it.
It's something that wasn't directly stated in the source material, but it builds logically on everything we've decoded today.
Okay, I'm ready.
We've clearly established that rosacea skin is essentially skin in a highly communicative state.
Right.
It lacks the defenses to hide its reactions, so it immediately tells you when it is biologically unhappy.
It definitely lets you know.
And what does it demand to heal? It demands the absolute bare minimum of products, the lowest possible physical friction, and a total absence of complex, fragrant botanical chemicals.
It basically demands absolute peace and quiet.
Exactly. So if the skin's natural biology strongly prefers minimalism when its defenses are down and its true preferences are exposed, what does that say about the 10 and 12-step routines being pushed on the rest of the population?
Oh, wow.
Are we all vastly overcomplicating our skin's natural ecosystem?
That is such a good point.
Is normal skin secretly just as stressed by the chemical bombardment and the friction, but simply has a thick enough lipid mortar to suffer in silence?
Oh, my goodness.
Perhaps the strict rosacea rulebook isn't an anomaly. Perhaps it's a masterclass in restraint that the entire beauty industry should be paying attention to.
That is a phenomenal question. Maybe the universal blueprint of layering 7 serums was never a good idea to begin with for anybody.
Something to think about.
Definitely something to deeply consider the next time you are tempted to add just one more trendy active ingredient to your bathroom counter. Until next time, keep questioning the rules.
That's it for today. If you want to check your own routine for ingredient clashes, build a personalized plan, or track your skin's progress, download Skin Bliss at skinbliss.app. See you next time.